I mean, talking with friends and from a poll that March for Our Lives recently conducted with Change Research, we saw that the top issues for Gen Z was gun violence, abortion access, and climate change. These are issues that we've grown up with, affecting our immediate lives, and it's no surprise that they ended up being the issues that drove young voters to the polls.
Yeah, no surprise indeed. I remember, Micah, doing reporting from Parkland and being an older millennial who, sort of grew up with some of this fear, very liminal, but at the same time, we did fire drills when I was growing up and going to school. We didn't do active shooter drills, and that is just so fundamentally different for your generation. Mia, can you talk about sort of the urgency that young voters feel as they are casting their ballots, this mix of both fear and of hope?
Yeah, specifically Gen Z, like Micah was saying, we have grown up with these issues from a very young age, and we have witnessed time and time again how our democracy responds to these issues. And for a lot of the new Gen Z that were able to vote in this upcoming election, this was the first time that they were able to exercise their right to vote. And I think that's where that hope piece comes in, right? Is that now we have this new generation that has seen everything and is finally willing to do what needs to be done to vote in the people who need to be voted in to see the change that they want to make in the world. And I think the urgency part really comes in after this summer with Roe v. Wade. There's a lot of different states where you see the urgency that Gen Z specifically, we are very forward thinking and we have experienced our rights on the line time and time again. And the urgency is now.
Right, it is not theoretical to you. So Santiago, as I said, not the voters of tomorrow, the voters of today. I think it is time for a brand shift. It strikes me that in addition to talking about these voters, having a seat at the table, right, the power of having a seat at the table, the way in which you then sort of have more of a legislative mandate, you also now have a member of your generation who is in Congress. And I'm not going to overstate what that means, right? We understand he has one vote just like everybody else. But the fact that that lived experience and that perspective is there, it matters, Santiago.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that it's not even just his life experience, but even just the fact that there is a member of Gen Z in office, someone who we can relate with. I mean, I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday talking about how he's a Swiftie and he likes Harry Styles and how he likes to watch Marvel movies, and like all of these are things that seem really unimportant, but they provide a cultural perspective that Gen Z can relate with, and that really helps more members of our generation see themselves in position of power and potentially run for office at some point.
Right, that cultural touchstone becomes so critical. Sebastian, you know that better than anyone in the platforms that you have utilized and leveraged in order to reach your generation. So I want you to talk a little bit about that, but I also want to inject here, and I don't need to tell all of you, you guys know this, but you can't talk about millennials, you can't talk about Gen Z without acknowledging Black voters, Latino voters, AAPI voters. I mean, this is an inherently diverse group of voters. And it strikes me that half of Gen Z isn't even eligible to vote yet.
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy that when we look at the voting that was in Georgia, for example, 80 plus Black men voted Democrat, 90 plus Black women. And the same thing for Latino voters were really high, around 50, 60%. If we want the consistent and the constant Black and brown people, then we need to be changing what we're doing so that we're supporting Black and brown people, right? And something that we have seen with Gen Z is that we're connecting every marginalized group of person together, and we're all coming together because we know that we need each other. And I think that's something that we're going to keep seeing, and that's something that we need to see more and more. If they want Gen Z and Black and brown voters to stick by the Democrats, we have to become important in the conversation and seeing immigration reform and voting access change, seeing criminal reform. If we see these things, then we'll keep seeing more votes and more votes happen, even more than we're seeing right now.
I love this panel so much, and I want to make sure that I get each of you in one more time. So 30 seconds, you can take a little bit more. Same question, sort of the number one thing you want all leaders, regardless of party, what they need to do in order to earn the support of this big generation, one in which the electorate is growing. Mia, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I would say that these people, the candidates running, they need to bring authenticity and passion to the table, because that is what these youth voters are all about. We want to see ourselves represented in our elected officials, right? And Gen Z, millennials, we're coming to the table with authenticity and passion. And more than anything else, we want elected officials who are down to build relationships with us, right? Leaders Igniting Transformation, we are a year-round civic engagement organization for a reason. And it's because we are firm believers in that building relationships with the young people is what's going to make these elections happen for these candidates. And time has shown again in 2018 and 2020 and again in 2022, candidates cannot win without youth vote, specifically the Black and brown youth vote.
Ding, 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 right? The organizing has to be year-round. Micah, your thoughts?
Yeah, we are the generation that put these elected officials into office just on Tuesday, and we need to make sure that we hold them accountable. Our elected officials represent us, and they need to have immediate and meaningful change so that we actually have lives that are protected, and so that we can continue to go into our futures and live our lives without the fear of being shot or not having access to abortion or having the climate crisis destroy our planet before we can have children or live on to an older age.